Yo, what's going on guys, it is Fox98 here and welcome back to a brand new video, and today it is another episode of the F1 debate for you guys today here on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and of course as we've had a week now since that Grand Prix happened, we've had a bit of time to reflect, to analyse and basically just not give immediate silly reactions to some specific stuff that we're going to be talking about. If you end up enjoying the video, drop it a like, subscribe if you're new around here as well, and as per usual with the F1 debate, drop your opinions and your thoughts in the comment section down below, and obviously we can have a little bit of a debate about each and every single one of them. So first things first, how was the Grand Prix itself? I don't actually think it was as good as Bahrain. I felt like even though Verstappen led the Grand Prix from start to finish in Bahrain, I felt like there was a little bit more action, and I felt like the racing was probably a little bit better, especially with what Fernando Alonso was able to do with his battle with Russell, Hamilton and Sainz. Also the battle between Leclerc and Perez, the sort of shock DNF of Charles Leclerc. I just felt like there was probably a little bit more entertainment in there. Not obviously like we've had entertainment at all this season, but I felt like there was just a little bit more in there. I still thought that the race was decent, and I don't think it was awful. I think probably what made it a little bit more satisfying for me is that Sergio Perez beat Verstappen. I'm not a fan of Red Bull. I never have been, and I probably never will be unless, things drastically change. But I also don't like Max, but I do like Sergio Perez. So it was nice to see him win, and I'll accept that. Also, you'll probably notice that the background keeps changing. Can't do anything about that. It's when the sun likes to come in and out of the clouds. But that's completely irrelevant and has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. So yeah, Sergio Perez won the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. A little bit of tension between the two Red Bull drivers. Obviously, they were told to do a set lap time of a 1:33.0. Verstappen completely ignored what Jean-Pierre Lambiase was saying on the radio and carried on doing a 32.6 to close and win the Grand Prix. Sergio Perez was trying to do what the team wanted, but in the end, he decided against it. I think there's a little bit that needs to be said about this. I do very much criticise Max Verstappen. I always do, and I feel like I should shut up sometimes about it because I do not like him, but he is a fantastic Formula 1 driver. There is no doubt about it, and he is deserving of 2 World Championships, definitely more. But I think really, when you're a team player, I understand his frustration. When you're in qualifying and you're the quickest man for the whole of the weekend, FP1, 2 and 3, you are far clearer of anybody else on circuit. Qualifying starts well, and then Q2 comes along, and then you get knocked out via a reliability problem. He's fought his way back up to P2. Granted, it was with the safety car helping him out, gaining a few places without him having to overtake them. But let's be real, that Red Bull is a rocket in a straight line. There was no way that he was going to get held up anytime soon. But then in order for the team to go, well, hang on a minute, mate, let's just get a 1-2 finish here. The team is clearly having some reliability problems. We've seen that with the drive shaft that Max had, the long brake pedal that Perez suffered with during the race, the drive shaft that Max complained about again, the gearbox problem that they had during practice. They said they were on the limit in Bahrain. They said they were on the limit again here in Jeddah. And this is crucial because this is without any other team really challenging them. If, for example, Ferrari was on their tail, or Mercedes or Aston Martin were really up their backsides, Red Bull would be in a lot of trouble. We're just not seeing that problem because, well, they're, fine. And they're not having any competition from behind yet. But yeah, obviously Verstappen tried to keep closing the gap, but in the end it didn't make a difference, and Perez was able to hold it off. But yeah, a little bit cheeky from Verstappen in there. Sometimes you just got to sit down and just go, all right, fair enough. On this occasion, just bring it home. You're still going to lead the championship because he took the fastest lap point anyway. It's not a case if he had it, he just took it. But yeah, I think what Sergio Perez needs to really do now is just have a bit of that FU attitude and go, do you know what? No, I'm not accepting this. I'm going to do what I think is right for me. Red Bull have won the Constructors' Championship. We won that last season. I've achieved that now. In terms of my accolades, I can say that I've won a Constructors' Championship. I've never won a Drivers' Championship. My teammate has won it twice. You've put all your eggs into his basket. I'm now going to be selfish about it. You want to beat me? Fine. Come beat me. He needs that attitude in there, and he needs to do what Max does, basically. But I genuinely feel like there is going to be a rift between those two. Enough about Red Bull, though. What about everybody else during the Grand Prix? Well, Ferrari. I'm going to make a separate F1 debate video about Ferrari, but I'm going to basically try and give you a quick brief of what I feel about that. Ferrari, we talk about Mercedes, and we'll give Mercedes and Ferrari their own little piece here. Mercedes-Benz, firstly, heading into this weekend, my boys, great weekend in terms of overall pace compared to Bahrain, and they were much, much better than even I thought they would be. And so much so that they were quicker than Ferrari out and out, especially in race pace. Obviously, qualifying is a bit of a different scenario. Mercedes is still lacking a lot in qualifying trim, but that's to be expected. Ferrari have got big tyre degradation problems, and there's just something about that car that's not working. And for me personally, if we're talking about cars, right, we're talking about Mercedes being bad. We're talking about them changing their side pods. We're talking about them going into a B-spec car. No one seems to be saying anything about Ferrari, and I really don't know why. I feel like Ferrari needs to be talked about more. They were the team that in the first half of the season really took the fight to Red Bull for a championship. They completely crumbled and collapsed throughout the second half of the season. Heading into this fresh season now, you'd think, right, Ferrari, let's go for another try on Red Bull. For me personally, in the Bahrain Grand Prix, they were not quicker than Red Bull. Obviously, we saw that. They were the third quickest team throughout the course of the Bahrain Grand Prix race itself on the weekend. I know what you're going to say. Well, Charles Leclerc was third in the race. Carlos Sainz was fourth. Alonso was fighting with Mercedes. So technically, Ferrari was the second fastest car. For me, as my camera has gone out of focus yet again, so hopefully editor Tom will remember to just quickly pop myself an image of a different Formula 1 car so you can actually see that, or it's just going to do nothing. Wait, there we go, I'm back, so there we go, calm. Yeah, so I feel like really the problem is Alonso caught and passed Sainz. He then built like a 13-second gap when the race finished. That's the gap, just about, in fact a little bit less, between Sainz and Leclerc. I felt like Alonso would have just caught and passed Leclerc anyway. And plus Alonso was held up because the Mercedes were in front of him. They were managing. Alonso then had to manage. So I felt like Alonso was actually quicker anyway than the Ferraris. Alonso here in Jeddah was way quicker than the Ferraris. The Mercedes were easily faster than the Ferraris. Even Hamilton on medium tyres that had to go 30 plus laps was able to outpace the Ferraris and keep pulling away from them. And I just don't think that gets talked about. The fact that, yeah, let's talk about Mercedes and their awful car concept at the moment. But why are we not talking about Ferrari? Because their car concept, technically, if you want to put it properly, is worse than the zero pod concept. Why? Because at Bahrain, obviously Mercedes had more issues with the rear end, because their rear end is the big problem for Mercedes. Here at Jeddah, it was front end limited. But Ferrari just about held off the Mercedes towards the end of the Grand Prix. Obviously in Bahrain, Hamilton tried to push, but he'd already battled too hard with Alonso anyway. And then here in Jeddah, they were comfortably beaten. So yeah, the zero pod concept is clearly not the right concept, but I'd argue neither's Ferrari's. And that's kind of where I'll leave it. I'd like to do a little bit more discussion about Ferrari in a future video. McLaren, well, they've had a major restructuring going on for them in the team. James Key is out. I think it's David Sanchez from Ferrari is joining the team. And there's been a big technical directive reshuffling going on at the team thanks to their poor 2023 season. And they've had two slow starts in a row to this new generation of Formula 1 cars, the ground effect era. They kind of needed it. I felt like if Andrea Stella and Zach Brown were really going to try and get McLaren to the top, they've really got to try and iron out some weaknesses and take some bold decisions and start restructuring things. Of course, they've got the new wind tunnel coming, which will help them for the end of 2024, full use in 2025. But they really need to just start getting something in place now. They're 10th in the Constructors' Championship. They're last. They had a bad race in Bahrain. They had an awful race in Jeddah. Unfortunately, it was so badly curtailed that that tiny little pinch between Piastri and Ocon, I think it was, or Gasly, caused the front wing to disintegrate the way it did on Piastri's car. He was super unlucky for that. I felt it was a bit harsh for it to break like that, but it did. And then, of course, the debris flying off hits Norris's front wing and breaks his as well. So double trouble. But the big problem for McLaren is their straight line speed is non-existent. That car is so poor in a straight line. It is so draggy. I was watching them fighting Logan Sargent in the Williams. Logan Sargent has no DRS. And there was a point when Sargent had no DRS. I think it was Norris behind, had DRS, had the slipstream, and was still only about, I think it was only 4 kilometers an hour quicker in the straight. And I just thought, hang on a minute. You're in a McLaren with, as I've just mentioned, everything. They would have both been using their batteries in defense and attack mode, so that's even Stevens. But when you're in the slipstream and you've got DRS and you're just about matching, and it was only the top end speed section when Norris was then pulling clear of Sargent. And I'm thinking, you're never going to get past. So they couldn't ever recover because they just don't have the straight line speed for it. It was actually a good race from Sargent, in fairness to himself. A bit of a difficult weekend for him, but he built up some confidence nicely. So, you know, fair play to him. Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin, I didn't mention them at all throughout this episode so far. Again, a fantastic weekend. And I'm going to want to talk about the penalty. I've tried to dip down what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this penalty situation between Alonso, the FIA, Mercedes, and whatnot. I really don't understand it. I don't. I've got no clue. I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't understand the FIA. I just don't understand the FIA. I really don't. Am I upset that Mercedes didn't get a podium? Obviously, yeah, because I'd like, you know, it's nice to see. But the biggest problem for me was, during the safety car period, when Alonso came in, it was quite clear that the rear jack connected to the rear of the car and touched it. Now, the biggest question in the line was, does this effectively mean that you're working on the car? Because it says you can't touch the car, you can't work on the car. But you can use, but the car can touch the front jack in order to get the car to stop in position. There's nothing to say that you can't do that with the rear jack either. And of course, from multiple other penalties that we've seen and what Aston Martin presented to the FIA, they've done that in the past. For me personally, as a you know, you probably say a biased opinion because I'm a Mercedes fan, but from a personal opinion on, do I think that the rear jack is allowed to connect with the car? I think it does. I don't really see it. To me, that's not working on the car. And if you're allowed to use the front jack to guide in the car to stop in the first place, to me, if you put the front jack to connect to the rear of the car, you're not doing anything. You're not working on the car. You may have touched the car, yes, but that's not working on it. For me, if you went in and just started lifting it a little bit, then I would say that you're working on the car. But just touching the car and basically stopping it in the place that they want to in their pit box is fine. No one's physically got hands-on the car, and nobody else is doing anything. For me, I feel that's not a problem. And the FIA didn't feel it was a problem, because we carried on racing as per normal. What really just blew my mind and confused the hell out of me, confused you guys as fans as well, or all of us as fans really, was that on the final lap of the Grand Prix, did they then think, hang on a minute, this looks suspicious. I think there's something wrong here. Why the hell did you wait till the final lap of the Grand Prix to think, hang on a minute, something looks fishy about this? Like, they have got so many replays, so many different camera angles, CCTV, stuff that we'll never be able to see. And they thought, hang on a minute, right, guys, can we just go back to lap 19 of 53 in this Grand Prix and have a look at Fernando Alonso and that rear jack, because I think it touched. Why didn't you just look at the first place? Why didn't you just look then? There was no difference in there. I really don't understand it. I also don't understand Alonso's penalty. Hopefully, there's an image that I can try and put up on the screen right now. And if I can't, you're just going to see my annoying face with my voice that's slowly dying. But Alonso's car was, in fairness, it was too far to the left in order for it to be deemed in your grid box. But if you look further back, there were way more cars that were also well off their grid boxes, probably to the extent of where Alonso was, yet they never got investigated or penalised for it. So I don't quite understand that at all, really. I think the FIA are right to clamp down on drivers in their grid boxes and also penalties, etc. But if you're going to implement it, well, I mean, Alonso, yes, he was outside his grid box, but so too were plenty of other drivers behind. So I don't quite understand it. It just got too confusing. I thought we were done with it. That's the problem I've got. I thought we were done with the confusing elements of the FIA and the rejigs, but clearly we're not, and we won't ever be. There'll always be something around that will just get on our nerves. So yeah, thanks to the FIA. Thanks for doing that. Very much appreciated. Keep up the good work. But yeah, I think overall there was some good racing here and there. I thought, again, you know, Mercedes did well, especially Hamilton on those medium tyres. The one thing I wanted to talk about, which I completely forgot when I was talking about McLaren, was the fantastic effort that Oscar Piastri put into that Grand Prix to effectively bully Lando Norris throughout the whole of the weekend. Norris didn't really have a great weekend. When he made that collision with the wall in qualifying, Piastri got that car into Q3, which is an incredible result. When he pitted as well, I don't think a lot of people realise this. Oscar Piastri pitted on lap 1 for a new front wing and a set of hard tyres. During the safety car, McLaren left Piastri out. Norris came in for a fresh set of the medium compound tyres, and to the point then when Piastri was trying to literally bully his way past Norris on tyres that he'd been on since the first lap of the race. You've got to credit it. That was a great job, and Norris really needs a wake-up call now. The problem that Norris has got, he's had 2 seasons where Daniel Ricciardo has severely underperformed in the McLaren for whatever reason that may be. The car just wasn't working for him. He's now got a driver that is at his level, and that is Piastri. He is multiple champion in F3, F2. He needs to be careful to keep himself as the number 1 driver. And obviously with Piastri's home race coming up next, it's going to be more motivation for him. In terms of the rest of the drivers around the grid, Verstappen, great result from him to get his way up the field. Again, a lot of people will complain that Red Bull are dominating the sport. Yeah, they are. But again, as I said in the previous episode of the F1 debate, and I'll say it again here, it's up to the other teams to do their job right and get up to the front, which, you know, I think they will. I think in terms of the cost cap and the whole budget, the whole penalty that Red Bull have got, I think what you're going to find is that Red Bull in the second half of the season, when they were dominating, would have put all their wind tunnel time and resources into their 2023 car. So you will not see anything take effect. I pretty much believe that from the middle of the season right to the end, you will see that penalty really start to hit home, especially when the likes of Aston Martin with their wind tunnel time will develop, especially when Mercedes, when they start bringing a new design philosophy to their car, will start coming up, when Ferrari start developing as well. I think you'll really see towards the end of 2023, middle, and then also into 24, I think that's when you'll see the other teams really start to try and come back at them in a different type of way. But with pretty much all that out of the way, pretty much all that discussion said and done, next up is the Australian Grand Prix. What do I think is going to happen there? I think Red Bull will dominate, as I do dearly expect, as we all really expect, to be honest. I think Aston Martin will be particularly strong here again. I really think they'll actually be a bit closer to Red Bull than they have been in previous events. Aston Martin seems to be extremely good at braking much later than everybody else. They've also got great low-speed cornering, and the final sector is quite suited to them. Also parts of the first sector, like the turn 3, 4 and 5, they're also very much Aston Martin, I feel, type of corners. And then also on the end of the long back straight down towards the new turn 11, then that final complex of corners there, I definitely think that's an Aston Martin type of thing. I think Red Bull will still win the race and probably get another 1-2, as I expect for quite a lot of the first half of the season. But I wouldn't rule out Aston Martin and even Fernando Alonso, maybe if Perez is off the pace, putting a little bit more of a fight towards Red Bull. I don't think Ferrari will be very competitive again here in Albert Park. I think Mercedes will pretty much follow the same trends. They won't be great in qualifying. I think this is still a front-limited circuit, though, so I do expect Mercedes to be better in the race. And I feel like because they seem to have sorted out a lot of their straight-line speed issues, I think realistically they're not going to suffer too much. They'll obviously suffer in some of the high-speed cornerings, like the turn 10, 11 chicane, or turn 9, 10 and chicane. That section, obviously the first sector will be a little bit shaky for them. I think the final sector will be okay. They don't have the rear downforce, but it's low-speed cornering, so they might be all right. So I think they'll be okay. And yeah, Alpine, they were actually quite good in Jeddah. I think they'll do as good as well here in Albert Park. I didn't actually talk about Alpine. I forgot about them. Great result from them. Really, really calm, composed. Great stuff from them. Can't fault it. I think it will probably follow the same trend. After Australia, going into Baku, we'll definitely see some things change. Especially because there'll be a 3-week break. It'll be the first sprint race of the season, and we'll see a lot of teams bring in some big packages. Like McLaren have got rumoured. Red Bull have got some rumoured. Mercedes are potentially trying to bring some forwards, although I don't think they're going to fast track it, to be honest. I think they'll take their time to make sure they get it right. But yeah, as things stand, it is all Red Bull, but that's kind of to be expected. But like I said, I think things will change in the second half and the end of the season. Red Bull and Christian Horner, I think, are definitely right on what they say. Keep riding high while they've got the car and the advantage, because that penalty will come at them and their rivals will start coming at them. So they need to take advantage while they've got it. But guys, that's pretty much it for the F1 debate. That's my thoughts of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It was all right. I'd probably give the race a 5.5 out of 10, I think. It was not as good as Bahrain, in my opinion. In terms of the wheel-to-wheel racing, the drama wasn't quite there. Oh, finally, I forgot. The safety car. That was the dumbest safety car deployment ever. I've never seen a driver pull so far away from the circuit, even drive into an escape road. No, we've got to get a safety car out for that. That is wrong. No, there was never a safety car ever. That was really, really silly to see. But they brought it out nonetheless. But yeah, it just wasn't really much going on, unfortunately. But it is what it is. You can have great races and you can have some bad races. And that's exactly how things work in sport. And it's the first Saudi Arabian Grand Prix that we've had where it's been poor. The other two races have been excellent. And I really just want to finally say, I keep thinking of things to say. Jeddah gets a lot of disrespect obviously the country, Saudi Arabia, gets a lot of disrespect, which puts harm on the Jeddah street circuit. I want to put some respect on the Jeddah street circuit. It's a bloody awesome circuit. It's high speed, it's fast. Yes, it's dangerous, but at the end of the day, these are the best drivers in the world. If you make a mistake, you get punished for it. We've had two fantastic races in the past, in 21 and 22. They were absolutely epic. Obviously, this time around, it wasn't the case, but still, it's a great street circuit, and I hope it's here to stay for a long, long time. And of course, there are problems with the country itself, but that's for the country to sort out. We just get to enjoy the racing, and that's what we should do. But guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, though. Drop it a like, subscribe if you're new around here as well. And I'll catch you guys with my next F1 debate video very, very soon. Take care all. Peace.